welcome to another episode of accessiBe's Spotlight Sessions. My name's Ilan Fisher, the host and also heading up on nonprofit partnerships. Today is going to be a really awesome conversation because I'm chatting with Ellen Gardner. She is the manager of the Shine On program at the Tebow Foundation. So really excited to have you on the show. How's it going, Ellen?
It's going great. Thanks for having me.
So we spoke a little bit offline, and I got to know you, and I know that you've already been partnering up with my colleague Avital for a little while now. But tell us a little bit about yourself and your role and how you got into the space.
Great. Sure. So the Tim Tebow Foundation, we have 16 different initiatives or ministries across 70 plus countries. We do a lot here. The need is great, and we do our best to really fill it where we can. With Shine On, it started with Night to Shine, which is a worldwide prom for people with special needs and disabilities. And it really just caught on fire, just started spreading so quickly and so rapidly across all 50 plus states and 35 plus countries and just everywhere. And the reason is because when you're a family like mine, I have a child with multiple disabilities. It's not often that you are celebrated, and it's not often that you hear the message that your life has great purpose. You are valued and just as valued as anybody else. And it's not often that you're in a community where you hear those messages. And so when all of these families started hearing this, as well as community and church leaders, they circled back to us and said, hey, we love this. This is amazing. It's changing lives, but one night a year isn't enough. What can we do? Families were saying, what can we do to experience this all year long? And community leaders were asking, we're not equipped. We don't feel like we're experts in this area. How do we do it? And so that is when Shine On was birthed in 2019. And really what happened is we started brainstorming and looking out there to see what organizations are already doing facets of community building and discipleship and church building well for families with disabilities already. And we reached out to them, and really we call those Shine On contributors. We have 13 of those now. And they're world-class organizations that do an element of community building, community inclusion, ministry really well. And so we gathered them together and said, we're stronger together than apart, and we're not going to recreate what's already out there. And so initially, it was just really introducing families and churches to these families. But when I came on board with my background in many years of disability, community building and disability ministry, leading that as well as being a parent of a child with multiple disabilities and having a technology background, I said we need to put all these resources, these free resources, on an app and website so that churches, communities, organizations, families can easily access them in one place. Because I know that when I led our community, I had no idea these resources were already out there. And it would have just saved so much time, and we would have grown faster, quicker had I had these resources. So right now, it's not quite a year old, but we have the Shine On app and a mirror website, a companion website, where you can go and find all these free resources in one place. And really the goal is to, right now, 10% of the church is able to welcome, is able to welcome anyone who walks into their doors. And we want to see that statistic change. And we want to see that, we want to really send the message that you don't have to be an expert to welcome these families and to befriend these families and to provide community and belonging to them. And so that's what we hope that these resources will do. They'll educate, train, and even provide virtual community to the families and help build confidence to the leaders and the different communities out there.
First of all, thank you for sharing, Ellen. And I'd be really interested, Shine On's, 2, maybe 3 years old at this point. How did getting it off the ground go, and kind of what does your day-to-day operations must have transformed from when it was in its ideation stages to right now where it's a functioning organization? So if you can talk me through kind of those steps, I'd be super interested to find out more.
Sure. Just to be fully transparent, our greatest challenge is really convincing leaders who make the big decisions in communities and churches that they, who are often overwhelmed, underpaid, working crazy hours, to say, oh, hey, now we've got to start, like I said before, the myth of being an expert in the world of disabilities. It's really convincing them and getting them to buy in, because what we've learned in communities and churches is if the top leader isn't bought in, totally sold out, that this is just as important as any other ministry or any other group that we have, then it's not sustainable. It doesn't last, because a lot of times a mom comes in and she's full throttle, but she burns out. Caregiving can be exhausting, and there's a lot of burnout. So we really are trying to reach those leaders. We're really trying to be strategic there. Even in the way we built out the app and companion website, is like, first, it really has to start with leadership and convincing them that you know not to be risk averse and not to be afraid of these families. That even the smallest measure of reaching out to them makes a world of difference, because I know from experience the isolation alone is crippling, and you feel like nobody else understands your journey, especially when it's pretty profound, similar to like my son, when it's a profound disability. You convince yourself that, of the shame of this nobody else ever deals with that. But families like mine need to be in relationship, and it's healing. So from my own experience, the community that we started with just 2 or 3 families grew and grew and grew to 50 plus families. And from that healing of relationship, from that healing of gathering together on a weekly basis, from that healing of realizing I'm not alone, other people have great ideas and are experiencing the same things day in and day out. A group home was started from this group. A school is on campus. We have equine therapy, and all just these moms and dads were able to really heal and grow and pursue dreams. So it's a beautiful thing when we do include and offer belonging to these families who are often not burdened, but weighed down heavily by the day-to-day tasks of caregiving. And it's so essential for the individual that lives with the disability, because they are the ones that experience the most suffering and struggle. But really, they have so much to give to their community, so much capabilities, so much talent, so much intelligence to bring. But oftentimes, because there's a difference alone, they are forgotten. And so our hope is that churches, families, communities, organizations can build their confidence and say, gosh, we really need to begin pursuing these families. There are so many of them out there, and they're just at home alone. We need to pursue them. And we have, like I said, 300 resources on our app and website, free to this audience, to say, let's make a change. Let's make a change in our community, and include these families.
And what I really liked, it was very apt that you used the words included and belonging when talking about the families, because one of the questions I always like to ask is, given everybody's who comes on this show's very broad perspectives of accessibility and inclusion, it's personal, it's something that touches them professionally, but really when it comes to inclusion and belonging, it's such broad terms. So I'd be really interested to see what your take is on the definition of accessibility and inclusion, given all those layers that you were saying as well. It's the organizational layer, it's the personal layer, it's the layer of the families and those relationships, which is intertwining it all. So I'd be really interested to know kind of what your take is on the definition of accessibility and inclusion.
Well, I think that disability, in my experience, disability needs to be perceived differently. I think it's the awareness of presuming competence and assuming intelligence, no matter what you see on the outside of an individual. If they're using a wheelchair, or if they are unable to speak verbally, if they speak differently, if they happen to need to do certain things that might look different, but to be able to function in a group, in a setting, a social setting, to become aware that just because you're seeing these things that are different than your neurotypical individual, that doesn't make them any less or any different. To me, accessibility starts by approaching it with the heart instead of your head where you're saying, oh, that's weird, that's different, that's not like me, I'm going to
Mm.
separate myself. But instead approaching and saying, wow, I want to learn more. I understand that there's a human being with a spirit and a soul inside, and that they're probably really cool. I want to get to know them. I don't want to be afraid of what's different. So to me, it's that broader perception of disability and special needs that's got to change. Sometimes, especially here in America, we focus on the strong, the athletic, the fame, the perceived norm
Mm.
talent, when really we're missing out on a group of talented people that have learned a lot more than any of us have because of their adversity, because of their struggle just to function day in and day out, depending on if it's mental illness, depending on if it's an aging disability, depending on what it is. It's to recognize the humanness of them and that they are really inside, and really in every way just like us, more alike than different, way more alike than different. And to me, that's true accessibility. That's where belonging begins. And so giving yourself the chance to befriend somebody who's different, is critical in life. This is the largest minority in the world. I mean, to leave this minority out, I mean, we are missing out on what they can bring. So I hope that answered your question. Well, I mean, of course, there are, churches and different buildings and places, university, they all need to be accessible physically, of course. But I really like what I'm seeing out there with the virtual reality stuff, when it's appropriate to help prepare somebody who struggles with transitions. I love what I'm seeing with thinking ahead of somebody who's starting something new. For instance, my son is starting a new vocational school today, being able to go ahead and take videos and prepare, and this is how it's going to look so that you're setting them up for success. I mean, that's accessibility, and so that he can begin strong, so that he can start to build friendships and really belong, and that his disability doesn't prevent that. So.
I really like that answer, and there's one thing that's particularly stuck out to me when he said accessibility comes from the heart, because on a totally separate note, I was at a conference recently, and they said to me, persona is a very, product or technological word, but actually what you're talking about is a person, and a person with feelings, with emotions, with all sorts of lived experiences. So taking kind of that word persona, which you might assume on a technical side, and actually think, oh wow, who's that person behind it? And I think that's super important, and really thank you for sharing that note, because that's something that I'm going to take forward and hopefully pass on, and then hopefully somebody will pass it on. And Ellen, just really the last question I want to ask you is, people want to get involved in Shine On, people want to partner up, they're listening to this and they want to come support, partner up, work together. How can they do so? How can you be accessible?
Absolutely. Well, we really want to encourage you to download the app, go and check out the resources on the website. We've handpicked every one of them from these amazing, like I said, world-class organizations of people who have spent years and decades sewing into these families to welcome them, to support them, to get to know them, to befriend them, and they just have beautiful resources that we hope that people will experience. And also just, there are other apps out there that I think what somebody could, I'm asked a lot, how can I help? What can I do? Just when you recognize that somebody is living with a disability or special need, approach it with the heart, like I said, presume and assume competence of the individual, but also think about how you can help the family, how you can support them, knowing that we all have so much on our plate, especially if we have kids. Even if we don't have kids, there's just a lot in the day. You're going, you're working, you're running your household. But just when you live with a disability, or you have you're a caregiver, I can't explain how much more it goes on. So I would just love to see neighbors, community members, just reach out and say, hey, can I give your other kids, a ride, or hey, I'd love to just bring you dinner tonight. I know you've got a lot on your plate, or can I run an errand for you? Or how can, just coming up with your own ideas to present, because I think that's the way we can all pitch in, and that way you will get to know this family better. And I promise when people go through this level of challenge and this level of effort to have a successful day, they've learned a lot, and you can learn from them. So I think that's how I would say. But download the Shine On app, follow us on social media. It's TTF Shine On. Check out the resources and build that confidence so that you don't have any apprehension when you come across, because you will, a huge portion of the world lives with some sort of disability, that you have that confidence to know that this is a human being, this is a person who has a lot to give back and who would probably be a great friend, and that you can approach it that way instead of worrying about not saying the right thing. That's what the app will equip you with. It'll help you with disability etiquette, person first language, so many tools to just say, okay, this is I can do this. So I think that's how you can give back. That's how you can start with Shine On, and I've loved being part of this today.
And we've really loved having you here, Ellen. Again, so many important takeaways. I'm going to recommend everybody to download the Shine On app and get involved. And again, thank you so much. We really appreciate your partnership, and we appreciate you coming here and giving your voice. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Well, I want to thank you guys for what you do. You're making websites and all of the content out there in the world, which is available and accessible. We have recommended accessiBe to all of our contributors, all of our guest resource organizations, and in almost every meeting we have, we're like, make sure your website's accessible. So thank you for what you do. It's a critical part of it.
Yeah. Thank you again so much,
Sure
Ellen.
thing. Okay.
Until the next time.
Okay.
Bye.